So many African immigrants ask, should I move to the US or Canada? It's a big decision. And it's not just about visas or weather. It's about where you can truly build a better life, raise a strong family, and create lasting wealth. And because of this, one of our subscribers asked us to break it down, to share from our lived experiences so that we can help others make smarter, more informed choices. Welcome to this long-awaited collaboration between Cash Talk for Immigrants and This Side of Life.
We are so excited to finally be able to do this collaboration and share with you what it is like with us choosing Canada and they choosing the US. These are our real life stories, and we are going to be sharing from our real life experiences. So, on what exactly it is like living in Canada and the US. We hope you are going to learn a lot from this video today.
If this is your first time seeing our faces, I am Christine, and as usual, I'm here with my beloved
Wachuku, Vidal, Wachuku. Welcome to Cash Talk, where we share our stories so you can learn and make your journey to success short.
And hello, everyone. My name is Dia Kola. I have lived in Canada for over 25 years. Welcome back to This Side of Life in collaboration with Cash Talk for Immigrants. Thank you all for joining us today. And today is extra special because, like Christine said, we are teaming up to compare life in Canada versus life in the US. And we are going to be sharing with you what to expect in each of those countries. So let's go. Let's get into it. So,
Yep.
Christine and Vidal, what made you choose the US as your destination, and how long have you lived there?
For us, coming to the US was not really a matter of choice. We have lived here for over 13 years. Going into our 14th year. It's the church that brought us to the church we belong to in Nigeria. Its headquarters was here in the US. So they brought us over to the US. So it wasn't a question of us sitting down and deciding we wanted to japa and we japa to the US. No, it was we came literally on missionary journey. That's what brought us to the US, literally.
Mm-hmm. So we can safely say we didn't choose the US. I guess America chose
us instead.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
what about you? Why Canada?
Okay, so I mean, I've lived here in Canada for 26 years now, and we chose Canada because we were young, we were just newly married, and we wanted to see the world. We wanted to leave Nigeria and see what was out there in the wide world. And we looked at many countries, but Canada had a streamlined pathway to becoming a permanent resident. You could get your permanent residence right away, and through the point system and all that. So I mean, we said, why not? So we started the application process and applied, and here we are, 26 years later. So for us, it was by choice, definitely.
So what was the immigration process like for you? Was it easy, stressful, or somewhere in between? How was it like for you, since it was a matter of choice for you?
Well, it was, I would say it was long, because it took us, this was in, I would say 1995, and it took us 4 years from 1995 to 1999. We submitted our applications for permanent resident after doing all the research, learning how the process works. We submitted the application to the Canadian High Commission in the UK because we thought, okay, Ghana was where they did it back then. The Ghana will be slow. Let's go through the UK to be faster. And then they asked us to come for a visa interview to the UK. And when we tried to get a visa to the UK, we were denied. And so we had to now go through the process again, transfer all our files to Ghana and, essentially start all over again. And that was where we then attended the visa interview there in Ghana. And that's how we got our visa. So it was long. And
Okay.
yeah, so what about you? Did the church bringing you to the US make it easier?
Yes, because we were brought by the church, it was stress-free. They took care of everything. So they first of all had to file all the required paperwork in the US. Then we attended an interview at the US Embassy in Abuja with two of our children that we were coming with, and all of us were approved at the embassy there.
I was approved for what is called the R1 Religious Worker Visa, while my family were approved for the R2 Religious Worker Dependent Visa. And on getting here, obtaining proper documentation was pretty easy. Once we arrived, we were only told where to go to get our social security card, to get our driver's license. Everything was pretty smooth. There is this saying that the R1 visa is one of the easiest pathways to America. However, it is important to note that this isn't a visa one applies for. It is actually filed by a church here that has the capacity, and the church must fulfill certain conditions, including the ability to fully cater for the persons they applied for financially, so that there will not be a charge on the state. So that is the underlying thing with the R1 visa.
Interesting. Well, our visa was the permanent resident visa. So that was what we were given, right, from Nigeria. All right, let's switch it up and go to the cost of living and housing. So how expensive is it to live comfortably where you are? And what is the rent like? What is the rent for a two-bedroom apartment? Phone bill, grocery bill, etc.
Yes. Living comfortably in the US really depends on where you are. So in some states like Texas or Georgia, Texas is where we are, things are more affordable. But in places like California or New York, the cost can feel very overwhelming. So in Texas here, you could get a two-bedroom apartment for anything between $1,200 to $2,000, depending, and that's per month, depending on the neighborhood. We live in a three-bedroom, which is about 2,100 per month. Currently is below the market rate, and this is due to the relationship we have with our landlord here.
Oh, so I was going to ask, so does that amount include utilities, or are utilities separate from that amount that you talked about?
Yeah, utilities are separate. It doesn't include, that is strictly the rental cost for the place we are living in, and the quotes we gave you are for rent. Our phone bill, because we have three phones, it's about $120 thereabout a month for the 3 lines. And groceries generally for a family can easily be anything, a family of 3 or 4, anything from 600 to about 900 per month, or even more, especially if you are our people and you are buying African food a lot. They tend to be more expensive. But for us, it's not so easy to quantify because we buy in bulk. We usually purchase things in bulk. So it's only the vegetables and those perishables from day to day that we go to buy as the need arises. But if you throw in car insurance, gas, healthcare, it adds up pretty much. But ultimately, living comfortably just means budgeting well. That's what we've come to realize. If you budget well, you can live within your means. We haven't been opportune to buy a home yet, simply because we weren't allowed to do so by the church that brought us. It was their policy that as a minister, you are not to buy a home because you could be transferred. So how is it for you in Canada?
Yeah, Canada, it does depend on where you live as well. Like the different provinces, there are provinces that are more expensive than others. Like the expensive provinces in Canada would be Ontario, on the East Coast, and then British Columbia on the West Coast. It's like they're on two ends of the country. But I live in Alberta, and I've lived here all these 26 years. And if I should talk about rents nowadays. I remember back then it was really much more affordable when we first landed. But today, I mean, like a two-bedroom apartment where I live will be like $1,600 per month. And if I were to talk about phone bills, for example, my phone bill is about $90 a month. And also groceries, I would say 600 to 700 per month for a family of four would be, about right. And yeah, and utilities are on top of that. That was why I was asking about utilities, because 1,600 is just your rent, right? You have to pay your electricity, you have to pay heat and some other things that go along with a house.
That's pretty close.
So it's pretty close, but remember again, there's some difference because you are Canadian dollars and these are American dollars.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the American dollars is stronger.
Yes.
We are spending more, apparently.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yes,
a little bit more.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about home ownership. Is it realistic for immigrants in Canada to own a home? And what was your experience buying a home?
Yeah, like I mean, many of the immigrants here that I know, have bought their own home. Like many people that I know, when people come here initially, of course, you have to rent and build up your credit and all that before you can buy a home. But yeah, it is not that difficult. So long as you have a job, you have to have a job to be able to get to be able to buy a house. And you said it, what was my experience? Well, when we first got here, like I think it was about 2 years after we landed, that we bought our first home. And back then it was 147,000. I don't think you can even get a one-bedroom paid for that. In today's world. And so then we paid like $900 for the mortgage. But now it's more expensive. But Canada does have like a first home savings account program where first-time buyers can save up to $40,000 tax-free to use as their down payment. And you can contribute to that fund up to $8,000 per year. So you can start contributing to that, and then if you can get up to $40,000 to put that for your down payment. So yeah, and there are some other programs that help you with buying a home. Of course, you have to have good credit. There's also the home buyers plan, which allows home buyers to withdraw up to $35,000 from their RRSPs. So RRSPs will be like your 401k in the US, I think.
Okay.
So you can withdraw some money from that to use as a down payment for your home as well. So there are a few programs that help you to buy that first home. Today, that kind of house that we bought back then in I think that would have been 2001, will be like $400,000 today. And now though we have since moved from that house and we have paid off our mortgage. We paid off our mortgage like 5 years ago. And now we just have to pay our utilities, property taxes, and insurance. So that's our home buying experience in Canada.
That's interesting.
Congrats on paying off your mortgage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I hope it's not like it is here in the US where if you don't pay your rents, they can steal your ground rents.
Yeah. Oh, you mean their property taxes?
Property taxes
and property taxes. Oh yeah, you have to pay those. Yeah, those are important. Okay. Even though you paid up your mortgage, you have to pay your property taxes. So what about in the US? Would you say it's realistic for immigrants to buy homes in the US?
Yes, it is realistic, just like it is in Canada. But everything, again, depends on timing, income, and where you live. Like when we first got here, we could have bought a home. In fact, where we lived, the first place we lived was offered to us to buy. But the church policy was that you couldn't buy. So that's why we did buy. And owning a home is not that difficult here. And there are programs that help you to acquire one also.
Yes.
Mm.
And one of the big programs we have here is FHA loans that you could get, and this is for first-time buyers. So all you need is to have about 3.5% down, and it's more flexible with credit scores, so they don't, look so hard onto that. But a lot of immigrants families, it helps them get in. But you will still need to save for your closing costs, inspection fees, and all that.
And we want to be a little bit real here because credit score matters a lot. It still matters a lot, the standing of your credit, even with the programs like FHA. Because if your credit is good, you tend to have lower percentages of interest. If your credit is not that good or not that great, for the same property, you will get it at a higher cost. So while it's more forgiving than a regular loan, most lenders want to see, for instance, a score of at least 580 and above for that 3.5% down payment we are talking about. And this ranges all the way to 800. So, but the higher it is, the better it is for you when your credit score is good. Some actually even want more than that 580. They are looking at 600, 700. Of course, if you get into the 800s, then you are super good. Yeah, your credit is good. Then again, some states and cities also offer down payments, down payment assistance or grants, particularly for first-time home buyers. So you do have that opportunity for the first-time home buyer. The most important thing is to know that those things exist and be able to apply for them. Because at times people don't know, and these things are there, and you miss them.
Exactly. And if you haven't built credit yet, that can delay things a lot. And that's why we encourage immigrants to build their credit immediately they get here. We come from Africa with that mentality of, because we're used to cash, like, hey, I don't want credit, though. Hey, I don't want to own anybody, oh. But this is a credit-based society. So you have to start building your credit fast. Immediately you get here. If not, it becomes difficult when it comes to owning a home or doing some other things for you to get anything. So you may want to watch our video on how to build credit in America, even with no credit history. The link will pop up somewhere above there for you to watch it. And secondly, lenders will want to see proof of income,
important,
your tax returns, and sometimes a steady job history of 1 to 2 years for you to even be able to get assistance from the banks.
Yeah. I think it's very similar. It's very similar to Canada. But that 3.5% down, I don't think we have that. I think you have to have your 5% down on your mortgage. And I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but and you do have to have good credit to be able to get a good interest rate from the bank.
And then something else, probably unlike Canada, we don't have a tax-free savings plan just for home buying like you do. But we do have what is called the Roth IRA here, which is an individual retirement account. It's post-tax. So if you've had that account for at least 5 years, you can actually withdraw up to 10,000 from the earnings to buy your first home without any penalties. Because normally with the IRA, 401k, there could be penalties, the traditional 401k, but the Roth one, because it's already post-taxed dollars that is there. So you can withdraw from it without having to pay any penalty. And most people don't even know again that that's an option. See, a lot of these things, it's knowledge, which is what we try to teach people and talk to people about through this medium, through this channel, for them to acquire the right knowledge. Because a lot of times people miss a lot of things because they don't know. They don't ask, and they don't try to find out. So it might be good for the viewer there to watch our video on retirement accounts, which include the Roth IRA. The link will pop up somewhere above, and it will be helpful to look at that.
We also have another program called the NACA. It helps lower income buyers with no down payment or no closing costs, no credit score requirements at all. So, but they will still need to do a check on your whole financial picture to get the kind of person you are financially. So you still have to show some responsibility with how you spend money, even if your credit isn't exactly perfect.
And like Canada, prices have gone up. Everything is on the high side now. I remember the house that we were offered where we were living in 2013. We were offered that home for about 180,000 dead. This was in 2013. And I saw that home listed for sale. It was a good, beautiful 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath home. 1 floor. Well, in Nigeria, we will say 1-story building. Here, they call it 2-story building. So, and I saw that same property listed for sale sometime last year at 540,000.
Wow.
This was a home that was 180 in 2013.
Wow.
So you can imagine how much prices have gone up over the last few years. And the mortgage prices also have gone up. They're much higher now. I remember at that time, the mortgage was going to be about 3-4% in the mortgage for that home. Today, mortgage is around 7.5-8% on mortgage. So it's almost like double from what it used to be. However, in spite of all that, if people have the right plan, home ownership is still very possible. The key, though, is to start early. You know, when once you get your credit in a good place, and learning what you need to learn, finding out what you need to find out, it is very helpful, and it's still very possible. Because again, if you are not looking, you'll think it's out of reach, but it may not really be.
Yeah, I think I was going to say that in Canada too, we have what we call the tax-free savings account, which is like that's your Roth IRA that you were talking about. So you could use that as well for your mortgage down payment. Interest rates here right now are like, because I was just looking at interest rates today actually, is about 4.5%. So I think it's actually coming down in Canada than it's lower than it was last year, but you know.
Interest rates right now here, it's much higher. It's actually killing at this point in time.
Ours was higher last year, but it's coming down now compared to last year, for sure.
Yeah, because we were thinking of purchasing a home when the church let us go late in 23, December 23. And the interest rates were pretty high. And we were advised to wait a little bit and see if, with the way things are going, if the interest rates will come down a little bit to see if it will be more affordable, because they are pretty high right now.
Interesting. And I mean, the advice I would just give people, like you said, is that they should start early, and they should also start small. Like I find that many people, they want to go and buy that big house. You don't have to buy the big house. You know, start small. Just like I said, we started very small, and then you move up in house until you are able to pay off. Okay. So now let's
just before you go to the next question. One other thing I also want to chip in here quickly also about starting early is the fact that apart from the traditional programs that we have mentioned, there are other programs. For instance, like here in the US, if you were to get a cash value life insurance policy, a cash value one that you can start paying into, you might be able to get enough money out of it in a space of 5 to 10 years to be able to draw out more than enough interest-free, not interest-free, tax-free, that you can draw out tax-free from it to be able to use and make your down payment. So that's another vehicle. If people don't want to go through the traditional vehicle, that could also be used here to get out the money. If you are willing to wait for a couple of years, 5 to 10 years, for it to build. And it all depends on what you pay into it. Because if you have a focus, this is what I want to achieve, and you pay more into it, it builds faster. Because the more you put into that policy, the more it yields. And so if you have a 5-year target and you knew about it, if we knew about this when we first came and then just started doing it right away, we would have had more than enough to purchase. Even when the church let us go, we would have now been able to go straight into doing it, you know. So that's another vehicle that people could use.
Yeah. I mean, information is power for sure. All right, let's go on to the next area that we wanted to talk about today, which is raising a family and social support. So, how is childcare, schooling, family life, and all that for immigrants in America?
Well, here it's a mixed bag, kind of. There's public elementary schooling, which is free from kindergarten through high school, when once it's public. But the quality of the school depends on your zip code. It depends on the zip code. Yeah. So you know what I mean. So you're in a bad zip code or a lower zip code, that's what you get there. But if you're able to afford it, private schools are there. And for those who are able to afford it, they should be looking at anything from like $7,000 per year for private school. And then the US also offers flexibility, like homeschooling. You're allowed to do homeschooling here, and it will be recognized. And they also have charter schools or other private options for those who are able to afford them. Okay, but the truth is that public schools are there and they are free, right up to that level. But again, here you have to send your child to the school in your zip code. You can't be living in one zip code like we can do back home, that you can take your child anywhere you like to go to school. You're here, your child has to go to school within your zip code. You can't jump across to another zip code when you are living in a different zip code to take your child to that school.
Like saying, oh, it's cheaper for me, accommodation-wise, to live in this zip code, but since the education is better in the other zip code, I will take my child to that zip code. No, it doesn't work like that here.
And also there are communities and churches that help people, for those who cannot afford some of those things, with parenting support and even, you know, informal childcare networks available. So everything, again, like we said, depends on you digging in and looking for those things and getting familiar with what your community can offer. Information at the end of the day.
Exactly. And when we talk about childcare, it's really, really expensive, you know. So families pay up to from $800 to $1,500 a month for daycare.
I think our daughter was telling us that in her area, that it was going in Florida, where her zip code, because her zip code is a little bit upscale, and she was telling us that it's $2,000 or so it was going to cost her if she was going per month, per child.
Exactly. And again, so you have some people, that's why you find that families may have to make the decision, oh, do we both need to go to work, or does one person need to stay back home to look after the child instead of taking the child to daycare when they cannot afford it. And also another thing is that there's no guaranteed paid maternity leave like you have in Canada. So that was something that was shocking to me too when I found out about it. I was like, are you kidding me? This is a developed country. How come we have that in Nigeria and we don't have it here in the US, that is guaranteed that you're going to get a paid maternity leave? So we have the Family and Medical Leave Act. It provides for 2 weeks of job protection for those eligible, but not paid leave. So it's just that your job will be waiting for you. When you finish, you come back.
12 weeks?
12 weeks.
12 weeks.
Yes, but it's just that your job is protected, not that you're going to be paid
To be paid.
for it.
Oh.
So
it's
some
unpaid?
states, yes, it's unpaid. So some states offer that. Then another shocker is that women earn less than men. A man could earn like $1 per hour, while a woman is getting like 83 cents for the same job.
Same position, same job.
Position, same job, same qualification, everything, but the men earn more. That was something that
was another shocker.
Because in Nigeria, we all earn the same thing, whether you
developed world.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And it is worse for us if you're colored, if you're a colored person, a colored woman. So I don't know if this applies in Canada. Do you have things like that?
Okay. In Canada too, I mean, the schooling is kind of similar. If I go, start from there, we also have private schools. We also have the homeschooling. We also have charter schools, and we have public schools. And the public schools are pretty much, it's not as bad as it is in the US, where it is, definitely according to your zip code. I mean, the schools are not in lower social areas. They are not as bad, because that's where they are. That is not the way things work here. The schools are generally good, and it doesn't really matter, even though you are supposed to, your child should go to the school where in your area, like the school in the area where you live, but it's not as bad as it sounds like in the US.
Can your child, if you live in one area, can you take your child to school, enroll your child in school in an area that is completely not within your province or your zip code, whatever?
No, public school, you have to be in the area. It should be in the area.
Okay,
so if there's a particular school that so if there's a particular school that you like, then you probably should be living in that area for your child to go there. Unless it's a private school and you pay. And the amount that you mentioned, like 7,000, it seems like, I mean, my kids didn't go to private school, but from what I hear, it seems like it's kind of similar. And in terms of childcare is always a challenge, right? In our own case, we were fortunate that the job my husband is in the medical field, and so he could do shift work. And so when our children were younger, he will go to work in the evening, I will go to work in the morning. So we only had to pay for the in-between. And childcare was quite expensive back then. But now, recently in my province, they went to a flat parent fee for childcare of $326 per month for each child, and that's like $15 a day. That's for full time for a child that's up to kindergarten age, and if it's part-time, then you pay $230.
No wonder everybody is flocking to Canada.
So yeah, and I'm so shocked by that, maternity or parental leave, because in Canada, parental leave is 18 months, and you are entitled to employment insurance for, like we have employment insurance where, if you have worked 600 hours in the year, you are paid up to a certain maximum. I think the maximum is $695 per week. 55% of your income up to that maximum, you are paid for if you are off work. That includes if you're on maternity leave, if you're on parental leave as well. So, I mean, if you lost your job, normally if you lost your job, you will be entitled to employment insurance, that amount. And so if you are also, on parental leave, you are also entitled to that amount. But I think the parental leave is up to a period. I don't think it's for all the 18 months, but at least I think maybe a year or so, you are paid employment insurance. So yeah, 18 months, and you can share between the dad and the mom. Like the dad can take 1 year, the mom can take 6 months. I have a colleague now who has been on a guy who has been on parental leave because of their baby while his wife works. So yeah, so that is, I think, one of the big differences between the US and Canada. And in terms of pay equity, I know that in Canada,
before you talk about the pay equity, this 18 months, 18 weeks you're talking about,
18 months.
18 months. 18 months.
18
wow,
months.
18 months, and it's paid.
Well, it is paid by employment insurance up to a point. I can't say now whether it's 6 months or 1 year that they pay you, but they pay you, and you can share it between each other, right? So
Wow.
the wife is entitled to her own employment insurance, even if it's just 6 months, and then the husband is entitled to his own employment insurance too. So they can share it and get the employment insurance for the amount that they are eligible for. And yeah, so even when I was having my kids way back in 2021, it was 1 year then, and I took 1 year maternity leave, and I was earning employment insurance for that 1 year. So that's the
Wow.
$6.95 per week for 1 year. I was earning that until I went back to
Yeah,
work.
I can see why many people prefer going to Canada for young families.
Yeah.
Yes.
For young families, yeah. And then they also have this thing they call child tax benefits that they give you. It is income based, but they give you a certain amount for each child. So that's another thing that is good for young families. So I mean, until you get to a certain income level, they will be paying you that for each of your children.
Yes, so I think we have that too.
The tax credit.
Yes, the tax credit for a child tax credit. We do have.
But it's supposed to be running out. I'm not too sure what this position is right now.
But a credit, do they give you money? Like the credit?
No, it's a tax credit. It's actually like a tax credit of
this one they give you
$2,000 per child.
cash. Oh, this one they give you cash. They give you the money. It's not like tax credit. They give you money. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So then if I go to pay equity, I don't think it is that, I don't think it is like that in Canada, because I know that there is a Federal Pay Equity Act, in Canada that mandates employers who have 10 or more employees to pay men and women the same. Although in my province of Alberta, we don't have a specific law enforcing pay equity, but in other provinces they do have it, and federally they have it. So I don't think that is the case in Canada, but I may be wrong. But I don't think so.
We can really see the reason why young people tend to choose Canada over the US, because it really is good for raising family.
Yes.
So, do you feel there's a strong immigrant support system or community where you live?
Yeah, but I mean, as we are all so far away from home, we tend to, hold the people around us tightly. And I think that really holds here in Canada. People tend to, kind of work together, connect with each other as Nigerians, when we come to Canada. And in my province, in my city, Calgary, we have a very, very strong Nigerian association, and we have, many programs, many opportunities to connect with other Nigerians. And so I would say that the community is pretty strong here. I don't know about other cities, but where I am, it is pretty strong, and we kind of do things together, and we do life together. So I don't know, is it the same with you over there?
Well, I would say here yes and no, because in some cities, especially where there are large African or immigrant communities, Caribbean communities, African communities, Latino communities, you find very strong support in those communities. People helping each other, helping with housing, with jobs, church communities banding together, and even joining hands to send money home as the need arises in large cities, in large areas where you have a concentration of such people. But if you happen to be in a place where you are one of the very few immigrants in the community, and there are certain places like that here in the US, it can feel very isolating. You will actually feel isolated.
Especially up north.
Yeah, some places in the north, and even some areas in the south also. But cities like Ohio, Virginia is part of the South. Alabama is part of the South. So it just dots across the country. It all depends on where you find yourself, because there are certain areas that you have a lot of concentration of people. Those things are easier when you have immigrant populations around. But when you are in a place that is isolated, where you are in isolation, you have to build your own village. You have to network and find a way of interacting with your community, with the people around you. After all, the Holy Book said that he who seeks friends must first be friendly himself. So that is what happens. No one hands it to you, because even if you are in a community where there are people also, you still have to go out of your way to be friendly, to try to get to know people and connect with people and relate with people.
Yeah. No, definitely that. I mean, maybe it's because I'm in a bigger city, and there are bigger cities, but if you're in a small town and there's not a lot of like community Nigerian people or whatever your community is, then you will have to build your own community, and you will have to make friends with whoever is around you too.
Exactly.
Right? So what about the job market for immigrants? They are credentials recognized easily in America, like Canada. I know that's a big issue.
Oh, it is here too. It is a big challenge here, because most degrees or certifications from Africa, and not just from Africa, in fact, from everywhere, anywhere outside the US, aren't fully recognized. No matter what it is that you have your degree in, and particularly again, when you zero in on fields like healthcare, engineering, education, many states, even in law, you're a lawyer, you can't come here and start practicing. So, in the US, you may even have a master's or years of experience, but most of these may not count, and you have to start over, or even take jobs at entry-level roles. But one other thing there is that even within the states in the US, there are times that with one profession, you can cross lines to state line and practice the same profession in the other states, even without getting certification or without getting a license to be able to work in that state. So you can imagine, if that is happening within the states, how much more when you come from outside the country entirely. That's usually a big challenge here.
Exactly. Because even taking the example of myself as a lawyer, when we came here and I was thinking of going towards law, but then I saw that I needed to go back to school in Florida, but in New York, I was allowed, they recognize my degree, but they use it and say, okay, I can go take the bar. That is the New York bar. But now taking the New York bar does not qualify me to practice in Florida. Because Florida
and you don't want to live in New York.
Exactly.
Exactly. So that is the issue. So having certification in one state is no guarantee that the other state will
even accept. And even talking about your own, for instance, it's as far as law goes, it's like only 2 states in the country, New York and California, that will recognize your foreign-based certificate, law degree, if it's from a Commonwealth country, and you would have practiced for a minimum of 5 years before you come here for them to even recognize it. So it's not just automatic. There are still qualifications, and those are the only 2 states. And like she said, you grab this degree, you go to New York, you do the bar, except you live in New York. You can practice. You can't take it to Florida to go and practice. And the same thing, in fact, to go to the neighboring state, you have to also qualify there to be able to use it, practice there. So that's how it is in the US here. It's truly a federal system of government. It's not like what we have in Nigeria, where you qualify in Lagos and you can go to Zamfara and go and do a case in Zamfara or in Borno or in Port Harcourt. No, here it's states
It's state
regulate
by
most
state.
of those
Yeah.
professions.
Mm.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
another thing is that skills matter more than maybe degrees and all
Degrees.
that. So
Yeah.
if you have some skills that you're
Mhm.
coming with, it may even help you to integrate better. And as he was saying, the degrees are not recognized here. And then for those that are even recognized, you have to think of getting the transcripts. Like, how do you get the transcript? They have some qualifications that you
Mhm.
must, meet. So many US schools require foreign transcripts to be evaluated so that they understand how that education you got compares to the US education system. So
Mhm.
this was one challenge I had, that even when I was considering getting my law degree transcript, I had to check for a reputable credential evaluation service. And
Mhm.
that's what led me to WES, WES, which is the Worldwide Education Services. So they provide the US equivalent of the level of study and credentials, and then convert it to credit hours, grades, and GPA summary in US standards.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so what about you in Canada?
Does that apply?
What's
Yeah.
applicable in Canada? What is the job market like, and credentials?
Credentials.
Well, you stated it that credentialing is also a big issue there. So
Yeah.
what is
It's
it like?
also, yeah, it is also an issue. Like you do have to evaluate your credentials too. In fact, I think as part of the application to get a permanent residence, you have to do that. And yeah, they don't really recognize many like doctors, lawyers, and engineers and things like that. Here, you have to recertify, like pharmacists, you have to recertify and write exams and maybe go to school. I know, I'm not really very familiar with law, but I know that I think you might, some people do go back to school before they can take the bar exams. So yeah, it is challenging. The job market can be challenging, especially as they always want they always ask for Canadian experience. And it's like the chicken and the egg. Like, okay, you don't have Canadian experience. We are not giving you a job because you don't have Canadian experience. But how do you get the experience if you don't get a job? So
Without giving
that's,
me a job
yeah,
in the first
e-
instance.
exactly. So that's always the dilemma that everybody, finds themselves in when they come to Canada. But, like for me, I'm in the IT industry, so I didn't really have that problem. Like I did get a job as soon as I was ready and I was looking. I did get a job in my field. My husband, not so much. Like I said, he had to write exams and recertify before he could work. So I would just say that people should, be sure to find out what is required in their field, whenever they come to Canada, or, I mean, obviously to the US as well. And yeah, the employment situation is kind of is kind of challenging right now. Like uh, there's not a lot of jobs right now, especially after COVID. I think COVID really affected the job market. And in Canada, the job market is just, like it goes up and down. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Like I know there was a few years ago where people were getting jobs from Nigeria in Canada, but
Mm,
now it's not like that anymore. Like I
mm.
think it's more challenging now. So you really have to do your due diligence, make sure you know where you're going, what you need to be able to get a job. I mean, so that's how it is in Canada today.
Okay, but can you easily um, start up a business or a side hustle as an
Mhm.
immigrant? And as a rider to that, can you be in full-time employment and still be able to do a side hustle where they won't bother you? You can still do a side hustle if you can start up one. And how is access,
Mm,
secondly, how is access to and cost of
mm.
capital in Canada?
Yes, definitely. People, like lots of business opportunities and side hustles open to immigrants, especially online nowadays, right? Like that's not kind of restricted to any place. Like you can always, make money online in one way or the other. I do know a lot of people who are into different businesses here in Canada. And, not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur, but if you have that, acumen, yeah, you can definitely go into business. There are different businesses that people do, like, real estate, people do, logistics businesses, shipping, forwarding and shipping things back and forth, from Africa. There's African food, restaurants, hairdressing, catering. There's financial and insurance advisors that people do. And yes, you can do it so long as here you have to put in your when you're at work, you put in the time at work, and if you do your work. But then outside of work, yeah, you can use your hours as you please. And if you want to do a side hustle, yes, you can do that. And in terms of access to capital, I know that you have to have good credit. You have to have a solid business case, to go to the bank to ask for money. But I would imagine, like, I have never asked for capital for business, but I would imagine that if you have a good business case and you have good credit, that there's no reason why the bank should not lend you money to start a business. But of course, it's very, very competitive. Like, you have to have a very, very good case for them to do that. All right. So at this point, just not to make the video too long, we will take a break here and continue in part 2 of this collaboration. And we hope you are going to join us because you don't want to miss part 2.